Good morning, guys. So today it is snowing like you would not believe. So yeah, I shall persevere, and if I freeze to death, so be it, because it's time for another video. Let's get into it. So in this video I'm going to talk to you about Node.js and the top 3 things you should learn after you know Node and JavaScript and so forth. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. So coming in at 3rd place, I would say that you should learn Express. Why Express? And what is Express? Well, Express.js is arguably the most popular web framework for Node, basically. It is a library, or a framework, or whatever you want to call it, that will make it very easy for you to get up a web server or an API, something of that nature. And it's actually to the point today that it's almost so standard that most people, there are others like Sales, and you have what else is there? It's Walmart's, and I can't remember it, but yeah, there are a few others. Anyway, but by far and large, Express is the most common one. It's the one that you're going to find the most resources for. It's hands down the one that is most popular. Anyway, that would be this number 3 on my list of things to learn, because it's like, I have actually met a few companies who do Node.js and have it as a base for their operation, but they don't actually have a framework or some sort. And I love Node and it's great, but it is not so great for web work just as is. Express makes a lot of things a lot more easy, and there's an entire ecosystem of different tools and plugins for parsing JSON and forms and all that kind of stuff. So I highly recommend you have a look at it. It's all if you're watching this and you're kind of go, oh, of course I know Express, Frederick, why are you even putting that on the list? It's so obvious that you're going to learn Express. And then I'm sorry, this is just a list for those who just kind of started out, and this is the bare bone stuff. This is the direct thing you learn after you know how to write JavaScript and using Node. So number 3, Express. All right, number 2 is Mongoose. Now, what is Mongoose? Mongoose is basically it's a library on top of a database integration to MongoDB, basically. And Mongoose is arguably also one of the most popular frameworks for working with databases in Node, specifically working with MongoDB. And the reason why I think you should have a look at this is because it's probably the quickest way for you to get persistence to your application. Most people who build their first web application or their first application will very quickly realize that, all right, cool, now I can get a web page up, I can get some static content, but now I want my users to be able to store data, or I want there to be some way of saving information on my system. And that's where databases come into play. And Mongoose will help you a lot with that. It will allow you to basically create different models, and it will allow you to save, update, do all the things you want to do with the database without needing to know, to write manual queries that you then send to MongoDB. So, and Mongoose is also probably the most popular of its flavor of database. Basically, there are other databases out there, but I think that you should have a look at Mongoose. The documentation is very extensive. There's a lot of content, a lot of Stack Overflow questions about this specific technology. So it's not some obscure little thing. It's very, very well established. And hopefully that these are the sort of tips that you're looking for, because trust me, in JavaScript land, it is really hard to know what's a good bet and what's not a good bet when you don't really, keep your fingers on the JavaScript community pulse. And it took me at least that's the way I felt when I started out. I mean, it was so difficult to know what is a good bet and what's a bad bet. And I would like to think that I've spent enough time in this community now and working as a professional, especially with JavaScript, that I can give you these advice with a lot of certainty. And Mongoose is a very good bet if you're doing Node. I can say that to you with certainty. Anyway, so that's number 2. And it doesn't make sense if you know Mongoose. Well, then you can probably suspect what I'm going to say as the first thing. The first thing you need to learn after you know basically Node is MongoDB. Why MongoDB and why not something else like MySQL or Postgres or any of these others? Well, I'm glad you asked. The reason why I think you should learn MongoDB and not something else is because odds are that you as a beginner or somebody who just learned Node is going to have a very basic need for storing data. MongoDB is very, very good when it comes to getting started quickly and simply getting some persistence in your system without having to do a lot of setting up. It doesn't require you it doesn't require much in terms of declaring models and tables and stuff like that. You can basically just spin the thing up and you're off to the races. You don't have to think about much more, which makes it, in my opinion, a very good starting point for somebody who wants to learn databases and learn getting storage to their system. In fact, I would say that at the earlier stages of application development, MongoDB is extremely good overall, and as your model and your data models basically mature, you might want to transition into something that if you get to a point where you need that, you might want to transition into something like MySQL or Postgres or so forth. But as a starting point, and it will scale. I mean, I'm not saying that MongoDB can't work at high levels. It absolutely does. We use it at my company professionally for thousands and thousands of hundreds of thousands of users. So it's a really good database, and it goes very natural with Node, and it's actually very popular for Node development. So it's very likely that you're going to find tutorials and materials that are going to help you with this. So yeah, that's my list of 3 things. Learn Express, learn Mongoose, and learn MongoDB if you want to be a professional Node developer.